Who actually thinks the Secret Service is doing their job these days? A recent article at theblaze.com written by Joe Hanneman and Steve Baker details the Secret Service security failures that led to the second assassination attempt. And Steve joins us in studio now to break it all down. So let's just start kind of big picture. What have you uncovered in regards to this second assassination attempt?
What we've uncovered is more questions that are not being answered yet. That's really, once again, that's the biggest problem, is there's nothing classified about how the Secret Service or the FBI discovered that this particular shooter, Ryan Routh or Ruth or whatever you want to pronounce his name, was on the fence line at 1:59 a.m. That's pretty specific information determined by cell phone, geofencing, location, whatever you want to call it. Again, why don't we know how often he was there? Was this his first time out? Was he there by luck of the draw from 3 different courses that President Trump could have played that morning? They could answer all of these questions right now. They could also answer the question about whether that GoPro that was hanging on the fence, mounted on the fence, was set up to broadcast to someone's cellular device or Wi-Fi device in proximity to where he was. All of this is already known to the investigators. They're just not releasing it to us yet. And that's, in my mind, the biggest problem we have right now. Come, once again, do a press conference, answer the logical questions. You're not giving away classified, secure information. Answer the questions.
Yeah, so to recap, I mean, we have the GoPro. Was that connected to anything else? And we also had, how did he know, right? How did he know he was there? And we've gone over these options before, but you could just go over those briefly. I mean, could have been chance, right? He could have been staking. He could have known that Trump golfs here a lot of times on Sundays, so he goes every Sunday, week after week, 12 hours and waits. If it was a quote-unquote leak, where would the sources have come from again?
Well, if it was a leak, obviously there's a Secret Service. They're obviously they receive extra personnel assisting them from HSI, Homeland Security investigation. They also have local law enforcement. And this is another thing about this, is if it was known to the Secret Service in advance where the president was going to play golf that day, that has to be passed along to local law enforcement 2 or 3 days in advance. They've got to organize the motorcade there. They've got to organize the bomb sweep dogs. All of these things have to take place in advance. Now, let's talk about this. In the history of human civilization, world leaders, going back thousands of years, have fooled their own security because they don't trust their own security. And they'll say, okay, I'm supposed to go here, but no, not today. I'm going over here instead, just to throw everybody off. Okay, well, still then, was this a lucky move by Ryan Routh? Or was he staking this place out over and over and over again, waiting for that lucky moment? Or was he lucky the first time? They know already. We just need to know when he got to Florida and why he was in Florida, how long he was in Florida, and how many times he went to that location, and they know the answers to those questions.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, as Eric Prince said yesterday, I mean, there's a lot of different options. I mean, someone could have leaked it to a staffer, right, who was being paid by someone else to then call up, oh, I think Trump's coming tomorrow. But anyway, we know that we need to stay on that beat. I think the world is asking that question. Anyone with 3 brain cells that aren't fighting each other is asking that question. Let me go to something else that's really important that you've been talking about, and that's the extensive rap sheet that this guy has. Yeah. I keep looking at this back and forth, trying not to put on my conspiracy cap, right, and just say, what are we being presented with on, what are the facts that we know about this would-be assassin? And one of the obvious things that jumps out is this guy has an extensive rap sheet, and there's some curious aspects to this. Lay it all out. Like, just go into some of these.
Right. The most curious aspect of them all is, how does somebody who has had over 100 charges, including felony charges, multiple felony charges, including weapons charges, including what the government calls a weapon of mass destruction, situation, where he held off the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department and the Guilford County Sheriff Department for 3 hours with a machine gun, and then that was suddenly pled down to a concealed weapons charge and not passed along to federal authorities, because this was a federal crime when we're talking about a machine gun.
What was the date again on that?
It was 2002. Okay. All right. And then I interviewed the sheriff, the conservative sheriff who was elected 24 years, served 24 years in that, or 26 years in that community. And he told me that this particular character was notorious with his own department, the sheriff's department there, and that they had hundreds of interactions with him between the sheriff's department and the local police. And that he actually said these words to me: he's just the kind of guy that would have been easily recruited because of his character. But most curious, with all of these charges, 74 arrests, how much time did he spend incarcerated? None.
Probably nothing.
None. Zero.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I want to get your take. So Representative Eli Crane is one of the two congressmen that are leading the parallel investigation for the first Trump assassination attempt. And I saw this week that he said something. So I want to know if you agree or disagree with what he said, because he said, you know, as a former Navy SEAL, one of the things that he noticed about the final firing position was he didn't cut a hole in the chain link fence to make sure that the bullet wasn't deflected by the chain. He said that's a pretty common thing for a trained shooter to do something like that. And the other thing that he noticed that he thought was a little weird were the ceramic plates that everybody's seen in that photo on the chain link fence, those two black plates that are there. He said that's unusual that you would put something that could be seen by a visual observer. And when you're a sniper and you're trying to conduct something like that, Crane says, you don't want anything on your body or anything around you to look outside of the normal habitat. So what's your response to that?
Well, my response is to convey what we learned from our sources. We actually have in our quiver of arrows is a collection of guys who actually, for their careers, train Secret Service snipers and SWAT snipers and other types of agencies. This is what they do for a living. And what they have conveyed to us is, first of all, this guy is not trained. This guy was a pure amateur. First of all, the weapon system that he was using, an SKS, it's a $300 version of an AK-47. It is not very accurate. In fact, what they tell us is that up to 300 yards away, the dispersion of that round is going to be quite wide and would easily miss its target. And so this guy was not a pro. And he obviously had not only not the specific training in terms of sniper training, but he did, as he said, several other things that were rather weird. Hanging up the backpacks with the ceramic plates in there would be an obvious giveaway. And then, of course, then there's the story that the Secret Service put out that one of their agents actually recognized or saw the rifle barrel. And all of our experts say, no, that didn't happen. Not unless that person or that agent was close enough to actually hit the target with their own handgun, their service weapon, because that's what we've been told, is that the return fire, of course there was never fire apparently from Ryan Routh, but whoever shot at him from the Secret Service used their quote-unquote service weapon. That doesn't indicate a rifle. That means very close contact. If they were that close, they should have hit him.